Hey there. Tonight, we're stepping back in time to explore what dating was really like during the Victorian era. And believe me, if you think modern dating is confusing with apps, unread messages, and mixed signals, you haven't seen anything yet. In the 1850s, relationships were a minefield of etiquette guides, strict chaperones, and unspoken rules. Every glance, every gesture, every word had meaning. A simple tilt of a hat could carry the weight of a text message today. Accepting a gift from the wrong person, that could destroy your reputation in an instant. Oh, and before we get started, if you enjoy these kinds of stories, it would mean a lot if you hit like or subscribe. I'm always fascinated by where people are listening from, so let me know in the comments what time it is for you and what corner of the world you're tuning in from. It never stops, amazing me how many people fall asleep to these tales all across the globe. So, get comfortable, take a slow breath, let your body relax into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to London, 1855, and trust me, you'll be grateful for the mattress you have by the time this story is over. Now, here's something interesting. Victorians often used the phrase, making love, but it didn't mean what you might think. Back then, making love referred to courtship, the careful, almost ritualistic process of winning someone's heart. And if you wanted to find love in the Victorian world, you had to know the rules. So, imagine this. You've just woken up in May of 1855, right in the heart of London. But this isn't the London you know today. This is Queen Victoria's London. The air is heavy with coal smoke that clings like fog. Outside, horse hooves echo across cobblestone streets, and the smell, well, that's unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. The River Thames, just down the road, carries the waste of more than 2 million people. On warm mornings like this one, that stench drifts straight through your open window. You wrinkle your nose and instinctively pull the thick wool blanket closer to your chin. You're 22 years old, part of a respectable middle-class family. Your father runs a modest but thriving haberdashery, which means you have enough for decent clothes and food, but not enough to live a life of leisure. Here's the catch. You're also a woman in 1855, and that means your entire future depends on one thing: finding the right husband. Navigating that world of rules and expectations is about as tricky as learning to waltz while balancing a tray of teacups. You stretch beneath the coarse cotton sheets, the weight of the heavy quilt pressing down on your chest. The cold clings to you. Central heating won't exist for decades, so every morning starts with a bone-deep chill seeping through the stone walls. Downstairs, your housemaid has already been awake since 5 a.m., stoking coal fires. You hear her heavy footsteps now, each one straining under the weight of a coal scuttle, nearly 30 pounds when full. She'll carry dozens of these loads up and down the stairs before the day ends. Your bedroom door creaks open, and Mary steps inside. Her hands are black with soot, her arms trembling slightly under the burden. You notice the way she shifts her shoulder, likely sore from endless lifting. She kneels by the fireplace, arranging kindling and coal with practiced speed. A spark flares, catches, and soon a small orange glow spreads, pushing back against the icy morning air. "Good morning, miss," Mary greets you, brushing soot from her hands onto her apron. "Your mother says you're to dress properly today. The Weatherbees are calling this afternoon, and they're bringing their son." Your stomach tightens. The Weatherbees. You've heard plenty about their son, Thomas, 26 years old, recently returned from India, where he served as a clerk for the East India Company. Your mother's been dropping hints about this visit for weeks, and you know what's really going on. This isn't just tea and polite conversation. This is an evaluation. You sit up in bed, the cool air pressing against your shoulders through your thin cotton nightgown. The fire in the grate is helping, but it'll be at least another hour before the chill fully leaves the room. Mary is already bustling around, laying out your clothes. Not just any clothes, but your very best. A dark blue wool day dress with tiny mother-of-pearl buttons. The one your mother scrimped and saved for months to buy. Mary, you murmur, your voice still raspy with sleep. What do you know about the Weatherby son? She glances at the door, then leans in a little closer. Well, miss, I heard from their housemaid that he's got all his teeth, which is more than can be said for many gentlemen. She says he doesn't drink too much, though he does have a taste for cigars. Mary pauses as she smooths your corset across the bed. Of course, he's been in India these last 4 years. Who knows what habits he may have picked up there. Your eyes fall on the corset, and a sigh escapes you. Every morning, this rigid cage of whalebone and cotton awaits. Mary will lace it until your ribs feel trapped, your breath shallow. It's meant to sculpt that fashionable hourglass figure, but at the cost of comfort, you'll spend the day with the sensation of invisible hands squeezing your waist. You swing your legs from the bed, your bare feet meeting the shock of cold oak planks, polished smooth by years of wear. No matter how warm the fire grows, the floor always feels icy. Mary moves to your side, her hands already unfastening your nightgown. Privacy, as you've long known, is something women here don't really have. Mary has dressed and undressed you countless times. She'll continue to do so until the day you marry, after which your husband's valet, or perhaps your own maid, will take her place. First comes the chemise, a thin cotton layer, no more comforting than a tea towel. Then the corset. Mary positions it around your torso and begins tugging at the laces. With every pull, your breath shortens. By the time she ties the final knot, your lungs can only manage quick, shallow sips of air. Not too tight, Mary. You manage, though you both know this is as loose as fashion permits. Of course not, miss, she replies with a faint smile. Your mother said you should at least be able to speak clearly when the gentleman arrives. Next come the layers. First, a bustle pad, a small cushion tied at the waist to push your skirt outward in the fashionable bell-shaped curve. Then petticoats. 1, 2, 3 of them, each adding weight and bulk until you feel less like yourself and more like a walking sculpture of fabric. By the time Mary slips your dress over your head, you're carrying nearly 15 pounds of fabric, and that's not even counting the shoes. The shoes are made of soft kid leather, supple, buttery to the touch, and completely flat. Heels won't become fashionable until much later. They fasten with tiny pearl buttons along the side, which Mary secures using a small hook. Your feet, wrapped snugly in cotton stockings, feel secure enough but hardly comfortable. These shoes were never meant for long walks. They were designed for sitting in parlors and taking short, measured steps, while Mary works at pinning your hair into the latest style, parted sharply in the center, drawn back into a low, glossy knot, with a few careful curls framing your face. You can't help thinking about what this afternoon will bring. The Weatherby visit isn't just polite company. It's more like a job interview, except the job is marriage. The entire performance will take place in your family's front parlor, where you'll sip tea and exchange pleasant conversation under the watchful eyes of both sets of parents. Every smile, every word, every gesture will be weighed and judged. If Thomas Weatherby decides you're suitable, he may ask your father for permission to call on you. Should your father agree, then the formal courtship would begin, a process that could stretch from weeks into months. And never once would you be alone with him. Every interaction would be carefully observed, usually by your mother or Aunt Caroline, the latter being your unmarried aunt, who lives in the house and has a firm opinion on nearly everything. Mary fastens the final curl in place and steps back to admire her work. You pick up the small mirror from your dressing table and study your reflection. The face looking back is pale, fashionably so, since tanned skin suggests outdoor labor. Your lips bear no color. Rouge is improper for unmarried ladies. Your eyebrows are natural, dark, and well-shaped. The effect is deliberate, innocence, modesty, and the suggestion of good breeding. "You look lovely, miss," Mary says softly, and you can tell she means it. "Shall I bring up your breakfast?" she adds. Soon a tray arrives, porridge with a touch of cream, toast spread with fresh butter, and a cup of tea so strong it could strip paint. The porridge fills you, though it's bland. The toast, baked fresh that morning, is actually quite good, and the tea, exactly what you need to clear the fog of sleep. You eat slowly, careful not to spill a drop on your dark dress, and mindful of your corset, which allows only shallow breaths and small, careful bites. Not long after, your mother appears in the doorway. At 45, she's still striking, though years of childbearing and the constant worry of finances have etched fine lines around her eyes. She wears her second-best dress, dark brown wool with black trim, and her hair is arranged much like yours, though tighter, sterner. "Good morning, dear," she says, closing the door behind her. "We need to have a little talk before this afternoon." You set down your teacup immediately. These little talks always carry weight. Now you understand why the Weatherbys are coming. She perches on the edge of your bed and smooths the folds of her skirt. Thomas needs a wife, and you need a husband. It's a practical arrangement, but that doesn't mean it can't also be a pleasant one, if you both conduct yourselves properly. She pauses, eyes thoughtful. "I've been corresponding with Mrs. Weatherby. She's told me some things about her son that you should know. He's well educated. He has good prospects in his company," your mother continues, her voice calm but deliberate. "And he saved a considerable sum during his years in India. According to Mrs. Weatherby, he's eager to settle down and start a family." You nod, though your stomach gives a nervous twist. Starting a family. The phrase sounds innocent, but you know it's a polite veil over the physical side of marriage. Something never spoken of directly, yet always lurking behind every courtship like a shadow. "Now, there are rules you must follow this afternoon," she says firmly. "First, you must not accept any gifts from him, not even the smallest token. A gentleman should never present gifts to a lady unless they're formally engaged, and accepting them suggests inappropriate encouragement. You've heard this before. Your mother often quotes her etiquette books, particularly The Young Lady's Friend, published back in 1837. It warns that one gift inevitably leads to another, until the poor young man feels emboldened to offer not just trinkets, but his heart. Second, she goes on, you must not touch him, no handshakes, unless your father formally introduces him, and even then it should be brief. If he offers his arm, you may rest your hand upon it lightly, but otherwise keep your hands folded neatly in your lap. You imagine how strange that must sound to young people today, when casual touching is so normal. But here, in 1855, a simple touch is serious business. Even engaged couples are restricted to holding hands and the occasional chaste kiss, and always under watchful eyes. Third, your mother continues. Let him guide the conversation, but don't be afraid to show intelligence. He's educated, so he'll appreciate a woman who can discuss something beyond the weather. Just don't contradict him outright. Even if you disagree, phrase it gently. You know this balancing act well. Too much wit or knowledge, and you risk appearing unfeminine, intimidating. Too little, and you come across as dull. You've been practicing this delicate dance your whole life. Finally, she reaches over and adjusts a curl near your ear. And remember, he's not the only one evaluating. You're assessing him as well. Watch how he treats the servants. Listen to how he speaks to your father. Notice how he reacts when something goes wrong. Those details will tell you far more about his character than any polite conversation in the parlor. With that, she rises, smoothing invisible lint from her skirt. The Weatherbys will arrive at 3 o'clock sharp. We'll serve tea and the small cakes cook prepared yesterday. You'll sit on the settee by the window. The light is most flattering there. I'll take the chair beside you, and your father will join after he's spoken business with Mr. Weatherby. Once she leaves, you're left with several quiet hours to fill before the afternoon's performance begins. You wander downstairs into the small library. Though library might be generous, it's little more than 2 bookcases and a cushioned window seat. You select a slim volume of poetry. Poetry is respectable reading for young women. Novels, however, are still considered questionable. You settle into the seat by the window, book open in your lap, trying to focus on the verses, but your mind keeps drifting back to the looming visit. Around you, the house hums with its usual rhythm. From the kitchen, cook bangs pots as she prepares the midday meal. Outside, the housemaid sweeps the front steps, a task that must be repeated twice a day thanks to the constant coal dust and horse droppings in the street. From behind a closed door, you hear your father in his study, shuffling papers and reviewing the shop's accounts. The house carries its familiar blend of scents: coal smoke from the hearth, beeswax polish on the furniture, and the lavender water your mother sprinkles over the linens. Through the window, you watch the street outside stir with life. A milk cart rattles by, the driver's voice carrying clearly as he calls out his wares. 2 ladies pass along the pavement, their skirts swaying with each deliberate step, arms linked as they chat. Their dresses follow the same style as yours: dark colors, wide skirts, tightly fitted bodices, but the richness of the fabric makes it clear that they belong to wealthier families. Behind them trails their maid, parcels stacked in her arms, walking a few respectful paces back. A gentleman on horseback trots past. His posture is perfectly straight, his top hat set at just the right angle. He wears a dark coat with tails and pale trousers, the standard daytime attire for a man of his standing. As he passes your window, he tips his hat politely in greeting. He doesn't know you, but that hardly matters. Gentlemen are expected to acknowledge ladies, even strangers, with this small courtesy. The morning drifts by in measured steps. You read a few pages of poetry, help your mother arrange flowers in the parlor, and practice a piece on the pianoforte. Music, like speaking a little French, doing embroidery, or sketching passably well, is one of those accomplishments expected of young ladies. No one demands brilliance, just enough skill to prove you've been properly educated. Lunch is simple: cold meat, bread, cheese, and a few pickled vegetables. You eat sparingly, partly because the corset leaves little room for indulgence, and partly because nerves keep your appetite at bay. Your mother chatters lightly about neighbors and local gossip, but beneath her words you sense her unease as well. A good marriage for you could ease the family's finances and secure your future. No pressure, of course. By 2:30, your mother decides it's time for final preparations. Upstairs, you check your appearance one last time. Mary has laid out fresh white cotton gloves, buttoned neatly at the wrist, along with your small locket, the only piece of jewelry considered proper for an unmarried young woman. Inside the locket is a delicate portrait of your grandmother, resting just below the high neckline of your dress. You practice sitting gracefully, which proves trickier than one might think under so many layers of fabric. The secret is to lower yourself slowly, allowing your skirts to fall into an elegant arrangement around you. Then fold your hands in your lap. Rising is its own art, pressing lightly on the arms of the chair, standing smoothly without revealing the effort behind it. At 3:10, you are stationed in the front parlor, exactly as instructed. You sit on the settee by the window, your hands folded neatly. Your mother takes her place in a nearby chair, needlework in her lap, more for something to occupy her hands than out of real necessity. Your father stands by the fireplace, checking his pocket watch every few minutes. The room smells faintly of beeswax and the fresh flowers your mother arranged earlier. Sunlight slants through the windows, painting everything in a soft glow. You find yourself hoping the light is as flattering as your mother promised. The clock on the mantel ticks steadily toward the hour. Each second feels stretched, heavy with expectation. Your palms grow damp inside your gloves, but you force yourself not to fidget with your skirt. This is it, the beginning of what could very well shape the rest of your life. And then, right on cue at exactly 3:00, comes a firm knock at the front door. Your father opens the front door, and at once you hear the muted rumble of male voices in the entrance hall, formal greetings, the rustle of coats being removed, the crisp clatter of walking sticks dropped neatly into the stand. Then come footsteps approaching the parlor, and your heart pounds against the rigid stays of your corset. Mr. Weatherby enters first. He's a distinguished gentleman with silver whiskers and a slight stoop that betrays long hours hunched over account books. Behind him sweeps Mrs. Weatherby, a plump woman in burgundy silk whose jewelry glitters in the afternoon light. And finally, Thomas. He's taller than you imagined, with neatly parted brown hair and strong mutton chop whiskers framing a lean, angular face. His skin carries a warm golden tone, the unmistakable mark of years spent beneath the Indian sun. His movements are deliberate, almost precise, suggesting perhaps a touch of military discipline. He wears a long black frock coat over gray trousers, with a high-collared white shirt that looks uncomfortably stiff, as though it might choke him should he turn his head too quickly. "Mr. and Mrs. Weatherby," your father says, with measured formality. "May I present my wife, Mrs. Hartwell, and my daughter, Miss Elena Hartwell." You rise from the settee carefully, every movement graceful, your skirts settling around you, just as you've practiced countless times. You offer a curtsy, just a soft dip of the knees with a gentle incline of the head. Too deep would imply lower status, too shallow, disrespect. "Miss Hartwell," Mrs. Weatherby says warmly, her voice smooth as silk. "What a pleasure at last." Thomas has been most eager for this introduction. Thomas steps forward, offering a polite bow. "Miss Hartwell." His voice is deeper than you expected, with the faintest trace of an accent, something unusual, perhaps shaped by his years overseas. "Mr. Weatherby," you reply softly, meeting his gaze just long enough before lowering your eyes. A brief glance is acceptable, but holding it too long would be shockingly bold. Everyone takes their places like actors on a stage. Thomas sits directly across from you, close enough for conversation, yet properly distanced. The parents arrange themselves as quiet guardians, present but pretending to be absorbed in their own chatter about acquaintances and neighborhood news. "I trust your journey from India was pleasant," you venture at last. It's one of the safe topics for a young lady to raise. "Indeed," Thomas replies, though lengthy. 3 months aboard ship provides plenty of time for reflection. I was quite ready to feel English soil beneath my feet again, and to rejoin English society. His tone carries something layered, relief perhaps, though not without a hint of weariness. "The climate there can be challenging," he adds after a pause, "for those of us unused to such intensity." You nod, sympathetic, though you've never traveled farther than Brighton. "I imagine the heat must be dreadful. We complain when our summers reach 70 degrees. "Quite so," he agrees with a dry smile. "In Bombay, we often endured temperatures above 100, with humidity that made the air itself feel thick as soup." He shifts slightly in his chair, fingers brushing at his collar, as though loosening it, almost unconsciously. "I confess," he adds, "I developed a profound appreciation for English rain during my time abroad." This draws an unguarded smile from you. Genuine, not the carefully rehearsed parlor smile your mother drilled into you. Rain is certainly something we have in abundance. And so, the conversation begins, a careful, measured dance of words. Thomas speaks of Bombay, the bustling markets alive with color, the strange fruits he came to enjoy, the challenge of managing clerks who spoke a dozen different languages. You respond with your own more modest experiences, the books you've been reading, the music you've been practicing, and small observations about life in London. Each subject is safe, proper, designed to reveal character without treading into anything too personal. But while the words flow, you're also watching him closely, just as your mother advised. When Mary enters with the tea tray, Thomas gives her a polite nod. It's a small courtesy, one many men of his class wouldn't think to offer. When your father makes a light joke about the weather, Thomas laughs, not the shallow chuckle of politeness, but genuine amusement that warms his expression. And when Mrs. Weatherby accidentally tips her teacup, sending hot liquid splashing across the table, Thomas rises at once, producing a fresh handkerchief without being prompted. "Oh, how clumsy of me," Mrs. Weatherby fusses, dabbing at the spill. "Not at all," your mother soothes, while Mary quickly appears with a cloth to finish the cleanup. These things happen. Yet you've noticed something else. The moment the porcelain struck the floor, Thomas flinched, not merely startled, but as if bracing for something more. His hands tensed, his eyes flicked toward the door, measuring it for escape. It lasted only an instant before he recovered his composure, but you tuck the observation away. Loud, sudden noises affect him more deeply than they should. The formal portion of the visit lasts precisely 1 hour, as etiquette requires. Any shorter would suggest disinterest, any longer presumptuous. As the Weatherbys rise to leave, Thomas asks for a quiet word with your father. The two step into the hall, visible through the doorway, but just out of earshot. You watch as Thomas speaks with deliberate gestures, his hands moving with the same measured precision you noted earlier. Your father nods several times. After 5 minutes, the conversation ends with a handshake, and from your father's expression, it seems to have gone well. Re-entering the parlor, Thomas inclines his head politely. Miss Hartwell, with your father's permission, I would be honored to call upon you again. Perhaps Sunday afternoon, if that would be agreeable. Your heart gives a sudden skip. This is it, the formal beginning of courtship. That would be very pleasant, Mr. Weatherby. You reply, your voice calm, though your pulse quickens. After they depart, your mother immediately begins the post-visit analysis. Settling into her chair, she declares, well, he seems quite respectable. Good posture, clean fingernails, polite to the servants. And did you notice how he helped when I spilled the tea? That shows real consideration. Your father joins in, his tone practical. He's saved a respectable sum during his years in India, enough to establish a household without needing assistance from either family, and his company prospects appear sound. You nod, but your mind lingers elsewhere, on the flinch when the teacup fell, on the careful way Thomas moved, on the faint tightness around his eyes when he spoke of India's climate. There are layers here, shadows beneath the polished surface, things the rigid rituals of courtship aren't designed to uncover. Sunday arrives unseasonably warm for late May. You dress in your second-best gown, a pale green cotton, scattered with tiny white flowers, a color your mother insists makes your eyes shine. This time, there's no corset crisis, no skipped breakfast. You are beginning to learn the rhythm of these visits. Thomas arrives promptly at 2 o'clock, carrying a modest bouquet. Flowers, of course, are acceptable, temporary, and harmless, unlike books or jewelry, which might hint at intentions considered far too serious at this stage. Thomas is dressed more simply today, a brown coat paired with lighter trousers, and he carries himself with an ease you didn't notice before. Miss Hartwell, he greets, bowing slightly as he extends the flowers. I noticed these blooming in my mother's garden and thought you might enjoy them. They're sweet peas, soft purple and white blossoms, with a fragrance that whispers of spring and innocence. As you take them, your gloved fingers graze his for the briefest moment. The touch sends a spark through you, a quiet jolt that has nothing to do with static from your wool dress. You're lovely, you murmur, lowering your face into the petals to mask the sudden warmth rising in your cheeks. Sweet peas are my favorites. I hope they might be, Thomas replies, and though his tone is casual, there's an undercurrent of intent, a careful choice rather than chance. This visit already feels different. The stiffness of that first meeting has faded, and with the formal barriers lowered, conversation slips into an easier rhythm, flowing more like a stream than a recited script. And that's where we'll pause our journey into Victorian courtship for tonight. Imagine it, the flutter of nerves before a parlor visit, the weight of 15 pounds of fabric just to sit gracefully, and the careful dance of words and gestures where even a fleeting glance could speak volumes. It's a world that feels impossibly distant and yet strangely familiar, because at its core, people then wanted the same thing we want now: connection, understanding, maybe even love. If you enjoyed stepping into 1855 London with me, don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe so you'll know when the next chapter arrives. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. What part of Victorian dating surprised you most? Drop a comment and let's chat. Until next time, take a deep breath, settle in, and be grateful you don't have to survive a corset or a chaperone just to enjoy a conversation. Sleep well, dream deeply, and I'll see you in the next story.